Yes.
So, hey, I am back, and I've got a familiar guest from a while ago, Kevin McCairn, and we're going to talk about everything that's kind of happened in the meanwhile, and what we've discovered, and, well, all the really interesting stuff that's come out, because things are really weird. Ivermectin's getting shut down from the top, and everything's crazy.
It is indeed. I'm just telling everyone I'm speaking to a smoking cat on YouTube,
Pleasure.
Twitter, Twitter. But um, I literally, dude, I'm being moronic today. I don't know what is the matter with me. Copy, 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 and yes, it's been a while since we just spoke. So, uh, how have you been?
Making it pretty well, actually, as far as you can in a world that's completely sideways.
Have you been working?
Doing my delivery thing. I've had some progress though. I've been selling art on the NFT market through High Set Nunts, and I've had a pretty decent amount of luck there. I haven't made like hundreds of dollars. I've made dollars, but I've made a few on art selling it digitally, which is kind of dope.
Oh, cool. All right. Right. Tweet is out, and let's go. Let's rock and roll. Let's see if my brain engages any better. I'll try and answer some questions. So yes, there was ivermectin that came up
Indeed.
there, and no, we won't be able to. Um, well, I don't know. I think you can talk about it on YouTube.
We'll just have
It's
to be kind of
vaccines.
non-specific, I imagine.
Well, you can't leave it up, and that's the critical factor. So maybe on other platforms there'll be
Well, I've had good
less
luck with
strict.
Anchor, but that's purely audio, so that and
Mm.
they don't do anything live.
But I thought you were on iTunes, right?
Oh yeah, no, I just distribute out through that to everything. It's like a not kind of like a restreaming service, I guess, but for podcasts.
I see. Um, well, I don't know. We can start with ivermectin. Like I said, I don't. I'm.
I mean, that just came to
I'm.
mind. I mean, honestly, what I'd kind of like to discuss is I've seen you talking with Robert Malone and some of the other people about what's come out recently as far as the dangers specifically with the spike protein and what it might be doing to people's health and maybe senescent cells and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So this. Well, I haven't been speaking directly with Robert Malone,
Oh yeah,
but
no,
he's
it's
been
the
speaking.
I can't remember their two names, but they're the one that are perennially shadow banned. Somebody in virology and like some veteran that's just been studying the stuff.
I'm not sure. But the uh, look, the issue with vaccines has been that classically subunit vaccines and any other tech was a case of bringing um, a protein particle. It was presented to your immune system, and in simplistic terms, that was enough to elicit a response. But there's, I don't think, well, I'm unaware of any subunit vaccines having the degree of toxicity that the spike protein has with SARS-CoV-2. And just every week, the evidence mounts more and more as to uh, its its ability to induce um, pathological effects. The list of receptors it can tag onto, and the systems in the body that it can impact and injure. And in that, that's been on a backdrop of, as I was just sort of as we were getting set up, I was just playing Rochelle Walensky, and her words of this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
That's
Uh,
a horrible statement entirely, but yeah.
it's just entirely inaccurate. Now, the the data is still such that the the interventions, because they're not vaccines, they're gene therapy techniques. Okay, they're transfections, RNA transfections, or um, expressions, or RNA expression and spike uh, transfection with the Chadox Johnson and Johnson, sorry, AstraZeneca approaches, and the
Now the Johnson and Johnson's kind of a chimera, I guess you might say.
um, isn't it still just a adenovirus
It is.
vaccine?
It
Yeah.
is. It just kind of mimics the shape of the coronavirus, to my understanding, to where it presents something like the spike protein.
I thought it was, yeah, that's like AstraZeneca is the same. It's you get a clone, a circular piece of DNA, or yeah, circular DNA, you can think of it as, and it gets into the nucleus. It's transcribed, and then it's like a step. It's a more fundamental step, if you like, than the mRNA, which is, well, the mRNA is a forcing of the mechanism by shuttling this mRNA across in these synthetic lipids. And there's just this, when you would speak to people, and especially in the lead up to the vaccines, was this idea that they're harmless, right? And just that you were just scared of new technology. You're a Luddite
Oh
for
yeah,
raising concerns about what would be the
you might as well be a flat earther.
yes, that would be the strength of it, that you didn't trust the gods in white coats. But the thing is, those of us who, one for better expression, have worn white coats, um, they uh, there's a well, I know from just methods in neuroscience that these things don't express the way you want them to. You get offsite expression. In they weren't. You could try using them in the brain, dread receptors, or I mean, it's more useful in uh, rodent models, but the optogenetic systems, but they they don't they never work as well as you expect them to. Or the idea is always really appealing, but they never do what you say, and they're transient, and that's a good thing generally with a I guess if you want to start calling it a vaccine and a therapeutic, but the idea that it would induce some sort of lasting immunity, when we know from uh, veterinary medicine that this type of approach is what they call non-sterilizing, meaning it doesn't stop the transmission of the virus. It sort of helps you cope with it gives your immune system some capacity, and then you're able to basically you become a super carrier, right, or a super spreader. And this is a um, well, I think we're going to see real problems coming into the winter months. And most people just disregard or just believe implicitly what they've been told by their authorities.
Oh, that's the height of
And
foolishness.
yeah, but, well, look, one of the few places where there is sort of pushback against that is the United States, right? And it's not that I'm against the vaccines or the not vaccines, they're palliative type therapies.
Oh, sure,
Um,
sure.
but there should be it should have been understood that it gets targeted at a very the people who need it. So the people who are at risk, the elderly, um, and the people who weigh 300 pounds and smoke constantly, like yourself.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And
Well, I don't weigh
this
300
is
pounds, but yeah, the smoking. Although that
yeah,
raises an interesting question. Have you heard the studies on smokers having better outcomes? Which seems completely
yeah.
counterproductive to me. I don't understand it, but I mean, some
So
of the
it's
numbers kind of
because
back it up.
it's what we've come to understand is that SARS is not a respiratory pneumonia where smoking would be uh, not so helpful. It's a coagulopathy that causes a severe immune reaction, and it's the immune reaction that brings on the acute respiratory distress syndrome. And in that within that, what they've found is that um, there's a property from the uh, parasympathetic nervous system from the vagus nerve and cholinergic stimulation, which dampens down inflammation, which is probably why people smoke.
Hmm.
But well, one of the reasons. Uh, there's a yeah, it has a way of calming people chronic inflammation, I guess. And you well, I don't know about modern day Marlboros, but like the Shavanic American spirits, probably doing some or helping with respect to the inflammatory states, and so people, if if they're smoking and they're able to get the infection and they get the cytokine storms under control through use of nicotine, then yeah, it's kind of helping them out.
Now, I wonder if
Uh,
any other anti-inflammatories would have a similar effect.
yeah, so I'm telling everyone right now, this winter, make sure you've got bags of aspirin to hand, okay? Because if you feel sick and you feel something coming on, don't let it get out of hand and start treating with aspirin. And you should also have antihistamines to hand.
Hmm.
That's the that's the similar, or not similar, but it's a way to preempt the coagulopathy cascading out of control. So yeah, that's. I mean, I try not to give out health advice much
Well, I mean,
because
this is all just kind of general stuff that you would use for anything. So, I mean, I could say we're being fairly safe here.
yeah, and take your vitamins and whatnot, and try to be. Um, Kids say I haven't fed them. Please take care of kids before starting stream. I have fed them. What do you, hang on, my wife's just.
Oh, certainly, no problem.
Sorry, dude. I have fed them. Uh, I mean, they might be more hungry now, but they did get lunch. Um, Sorry about that.
No, no worries. If you have to
So,
dip out for a second, I actually have 1,000,001 articles I can share with chat.
okay. Well, let me just go and ask them right now.
Yeah, sure, sure,
What's
sure.
up, Lucas?
I will, let me see here. It drops it to both things. So, hi, chat. I guess I'm hosting for the second. Now then, let me hop over to my show links, and I'll just pull up something cool to show you guys. I don't know if I can screen share, but I'll try. All right. Let me go over to my Discord and get some of my stuff up here. Oh, yeah, this one will be good for you guys. Let's see. Does that work? No, it didn't. Oh, well. I tried. Oh, well. Too late. I tried to show him something cool, but it didn't work.
I do.
I'll go ahead and just drop the link for you because it's the most up to date. Actually, I'll drop it in the Discord for you guys. But it's an update for all of the like the Zelenko protocol, essentially.
Uh, yes. Um, so they, I forget his name, Corey, right? He actually got COVID not so long ago, right? And then they sort of tweaked their protocols, but this is
Oh,
um,
there it is. Yeah.
uh, so yeah. I mean the formatidine, the fluvoxamine we were talking about earlier, and this is something that we were exploring the other week, which is I've always sort of raised an eyebrow at the fluvoxamine, but there was these studies which came out and showed that the affinity for the binding to the rate limiting enzymes for dopamine and serotonin are are as high as for the ACE2 receptor. And so once it's able to get past the blood-brain barrier, you're it's going to cause all kinds of problems, and it's going to cause all kinds of problems in the gut and anywhere else that that spike protein decides to go. And it's very very permissive, and that's an issue. But just bring it back round to the vaccines with the mRNA vaccines is that um, it was a terrible move by the people in charge of public health to tell people that these vaccines would stay in the muscle. They wouldn't. Um, they were safe in that respect, but we know that that's a
Well, I mean, if we just look
silly.
at the incidence of myocarditis, we can see that that's obviously not the case.
Yeah, yeah, and
And I mean,
why?
everybody knows about that one. That's one you can't really sweep under a rug.
Yeah, and look, within the last couple of days, there's let me just see if I can find the link, but um there's this nurse, sorry, brigadier. I'm not sure she's general, but brigadier and medical officer at Fort Rixey, and I've seen evidence to say that she's a real person, and they've put an affidavit together, and it looks like in defense of Dr. Peter McCulloch, and she's basically saying that they should be grounding pilots until they can assume that there are no ill effects, particularly with respect to myocarditis and clotting. And she's say it's a big deal. You haven't heard much about it, but
No, not at all. This is actually the first time hearing about it, but I mean, I know how big of a deal it is, but I haven't heard about it in this particular field, so that's fascinating.
and well, I imagine she's well. So I didn't know the individual, but people were saying the reporter was Patrick Brian Byrne of Overstock.com. Apparently, he's a bit Q-tarded.
Oh,
Um,
Jesus.
but the as far as being a real doctor, it would appear she is, and the I would presume that that would be a tough one to pull off. Were they just using someone random and just stealing their CV? But the but again, but to see what happens. There's a level of control being implemented within the United States that's just downright disturbing because
Dystopian
you're
and draconian, to be quite
yes,
clear. I mean,
mm,
no need to mince words about it.
and the question is, for sure, take care of yourself, right? Don't, and I think like this, I don't have it up across the tab with it on again, but this Spartacus letter,
Oh yeah, I'll
this,
make sure and include a link to that for anybody that's going to be listening to this later. I was just introduced to this, so it'll be very, very interesting to have some input on that from anybody that'll be listening later. Let me get that up as
and
well so I can reference.
so, um, everything that I seen listed in there is all the topics that I talk about. And do I think you need to go to Australia's links? I don't. No, I don't, because in Japan we haven't shut down, and we've just sort of had track and trace. I think you have to expect something like that under these conditions. But should people be locked in their houses 24/7, allowed just to go to supermarkets, etc.? No, I don't. Do I think that in the West we should be going down the pathway of making uh, COVID only economies, where those that don't want to get jabbed are excluded? I think that's a bad idea, just at a civilizational perspective. Um, okay, if the premise of biowarfare is such that it really does spiral out of control in the winter, then maybe. But in the last 18 months, I think we've seen enough to say that, what are the worst ravages of it, and the primary problem is we know that if you're overweight, you're going to have a hard time with SARS. But generally, if you can maintain, if you've of good health, I think, and you're not aged, then you probably going to be okay. There's the risk of the long haul syndrome, which of course, that's an assault on the nervous system. And of course, that's going to be problematic. But in a way, the it's not new to us, right? It's a known quantity. The only unknown quantity is the propensity towards neurological damage as a corollary of enhanced inflammatory conditions, and the fact that the spike protein gets into the brain, etc., and can cause all manner of problems. And that in a way, you're not going to not encounter this virus. It's as simple as that. So it should just be a case of you want to mitigate your exposure and hope that your immune system is up to treating it, and hope that and be allowed to treat it as early as possible. And if it means people feel comfortable taking ivermectin, I don't have a problem with it. It doesn't it's not a high it's not chemotherapy, right? It's a relatively well tolerated drug. As to its effectiveness, eh,
Yeah,
that
we
will
kind of
shake
don't
out.
know.
We don't
But
know.
that's the
Yeah.
problem. I mean, we don't. The people that are willing to ask the questions are kind of locked out from asking them, and
Mm.
so it's that part of it's kind of weird and plays into the whole WEF Peter Daszak
Mm.
connection and everything with the Agenda 21 not working out, so now they've got to do the Agenda 2030.
Yeah, and look, are these people going to stop because it didn't work this time? The and like I say, whether it was planned or they just had these elements ready to roll in when in case of emergency, break glass, as it were. Um, they won't ever stop. But perhaps right now we can, if if we're able to hold the line with respect to especially the mandates that are coming in that authoritarian type um, governments would abuse. And look, the line in the sand, which most definitely is children, right? Right now, the well, and again, we don't know because of the interventions we have made, because we made such a big deal about making sure everyone got vaccinated. We don't know how dangerous it's going to be for youngsters during the winter. We know they catch it, and the virus will go to niches in the ecosystem that it can exploit. But with
Like me,
making,
for instance.
you mean smoking cats? Maybe.
Well, the
This,
non-smoking ones too. I mean, you've got to be honest. I mean, that is a oh, I forget the term, but reservoir. That
yeah, so animal reservoir.
yeah,
Um,
because I mean,
yeah.
cats can pick it up, and it's very well tolerated in felines, but
Mm.
it is not so much in humans, and apparently it's a little less tolerated in big cats. Curiously enough, go figure.
Uh, yeah, I mean it's all down to specific biology and anatomy. And Shy Eyes just says in my chat, Agenda 21 is working out. We're in it. Maybe, but
No, it was already
in
supposed to have. All of this was already supposed to have been in place, and this was just going to be a capstone. So, no, we're not exactly in it. They just had to work it out.
this was
But,
their major trial.
I mean,
They had trial run at
yeah,
the
yeah.
and when it comes next time, they'll have learned from this. The machines will have learned, and
To say the least.
the look the simple fact is that anyway it's sliced now, we know that it's come as a consequence of gain of function research. We're go-
And that's
and people
undeniable,
are
as a
gonna
matter of fact, at this point. I mean, we can look at Fauci's the email. What was that? It's a FOIA that got his emails
yeah
out. Then we
mm,
look at everything else that's come out since then with the confirmation of the DASAC WEF connection. I mean, we've basically
well
tied
this
together the three major players in this, and that's just been done in the public with major news sources. It doesn't have to be
mm,
done by little nobodies like me and famous
no.
doctors such as yourself.
Well, but what I'm if I speak, if 1,000 people listen to me a day, that's a good day. The um one of the final nails in that particular coffin has been the release of the rejected DARPA grant in the last week, where in that grant they specifically lay out all the experiments that they would do with respect to looking at um, repositories of SARS viruses and looking at specific furin cleavage loops to or junctions to put into these viruses, and that's exactly what it is that we've been dealing with in the last 18. It's more than that now, isn't it? It's 20 months, right?
Yeah,
um and despite the protestations of the intelligentsia within the academic systems that were trying to protect their funding and their reputations, whereas all they've done is just drive home how untrustworthy they are and how excorrible they could be to um, feign and get all indignant that their research could have
How
crippled.
dare you suppose that I would even do such a thing? To say it firstly, and then when it comes out, this wasn't any sort of weaponization. This is all just to know that we'll be able to fight the next one. Okay,
Right.
well, why did you put fucking HIV proteins into it?
And the balls on these people to then demand that people get mandated for their solutions, their vaccines. So while they're getting rich off this particular, then again, it's dragged. Well, science and what was one of humanity's great endeavors. It's probably almost signed a death knell for it with respect to how the public view it. There's a lot of people that have been hurt, but whether physically, mentally, financially, because of what these people have done. And I'm of the opinion that yeah, they need to be held responsible.
I
The
couldn't agree more.
institutes need to be.
As a matter of fact, since I spoke with you last, I had someone that's just been following me forever on Twitter that we've just interacted now and then, said that she'd had some direct consequences of this. She's a gym owner, so obviously, that doesn't happen anymore. She's had to become a personal trainer outside of that. But the gym where she worked, the guy that ran the place, he couldn't figure out a way to make it work, and so he just gave up. And I should say that he gave up in a very final sense.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It's yeah, and there was there's been a lot of that, I'm afraid,
Oh,
and
certainly.
a lot of, like I say, and like I say that we would have had a very very different stance to this had the scientists been, the scientists that the world turned to, been forthright and say, well, yeah, this looks like something that's got out of hand. It's a biological Chernobyl, right? At the least.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that would be at least an honest discussion of things.
not doing that means that we've paid a very very heavy price. And look, um, you're going to get the recriminations coming out now. Okay, that well, what the US is going to start seizing assets of the Chinese in the United States. They're going to cancel the treasury bonds that the Chinese have been paying or buying up in lieu of the trade
Whatever
disparities
debt's
between the
actually owed to
countries.
them, right?
Mm. This has a potential of spiraling way out of control. And for those that think that the Chinese can't do anything, they could do a lot. And they can make life a nightmare around this region. And the U.S. Pacific Fleet, for all its abilities, is not going to be able to sit off the coast of China and wage full-scale war against 1.5 billion people.
And this is
There's
without
no way that's happening.
And this is even before we take into account what's happened to our military because of people like Miley and, the fact that the man wants to investigate white rage
Mm.
while cities are literally burning because of BLM terrorists.
Clicks. Um, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. There's there's a degree of civilizational collapse on the side of the US that, you know, uh, uh, if it's not a feigned uh, form of weakness, that I don't know. There was a plan to take on China, and this is all part of it in this next generation warfare. And yeah, you know, let it seem like America is tearing itself to
So,
pieces, and then they're going to go and wage war on China.
oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
In 2 more weeks, right?
Then it could have maybe, but the simple fact is that we've um, short of just getting all your sea launch ballistic missiles off their coasts and decapitating their major cities, and then doing follow-on launches. There's nothing that we could do, but the Chinese could make it very difficult in this region. They could go to war with India, right? They could, and because India is a big, um, you know, factory for the world, right? It's a lot
Oh,
of
certainly.
manufacturing is done there, and the Chinese were going to be reluctant to let their manufacturing base be subsumed because the people are pissed with them. So they may as well wreck. If they're going back into the Stone Age, then they may as well take everyone around them back as well. Um, they
Well, above and beyond that too, we can just look at some of the video that leaked out of Wuhan when all of this shit started really hitting the fan there, and you can see what they're willing to do, and it's
mm,
pretty fucking drastic.
yeah, and well, look,
And this is to their
the
own
other issue
people.
is yeah, the other issue is that we're so the pin has been pulled on biowarfare.
Yeah,
So that's it.
yeah, that
So
genie's out of
okay,
the
if
bottle
it's
now.
yeah, so what that we're all just going to have to sit and wait whilst these you know these basically invisible weapons get spread around, and we don't know. And we got off lightly with the original one because it was it was experimentation in the lab, and it was
Yeah, we got a
somewhat
science
above
experiment
board.
as opposed
Mm.
to a dedicated weapon.
Right.
That's my thought,
Um,
anyway. I
so
I could be wrong,
uh,
but I think that's what happened.
Well, it's a case of it's dual use technology, and just nature. The nature of the weapon is just in the eye of the beholder, right? As a weapon, it's been brilliant. It's crippled countries. It's broken economies. It's broken people. It's caused all kinds of chaos, and the Chinese actually got out of it. Okay, their economy is ticking along just fine, right? And as this paper has dropped with respect to the DARPA rejection, what this what this does is it puts into light the actions of the Chinese that we knew leading up to December when they could no longer keep a lid on it, where the Chinese were going around uh, and buying up other countries' PPE and shipping it back to China. That they on their New Year holiday sealed off the borders of Hubei province and then let 5 million people fly out to other parts of the world. That there was a spread going on in September, October, and and this was done with the complicity of the scientific establishment. This is and there could have been people that could have, in words of my friend Mark Kulak, popped open the phone, done a recording, and dropped it onto Twitter, and solved a lot of these problems. But no, you've had whole institutes getting behind trying narrative control. You've allowed an individual who's an NGO that doesn't even have any institutional oversight just become um, a gatekeeper for the world's knowledge. How did we let that happen?
Yeah.
So, and look, you can turn around and say, okay, the House of Rep or Congress, both houses or both sides decided that they were going to defund EcoHealth. Okay, well, we know that there are other organizations out there. We know that there are thousands of laboratories out there, and we know that these laboratories leak. Right? And also, bad actors, like literal bad actors, would have been looking right now at the ease with which you could cripple a system, right? With bugs that essentially, look, you could just go and pick up fucking dog turds, right? And start doing experiments on them to make
Ah,
them
cool. I found it. I'll
right.
leave a link for your chat and for mine so that they can look this up if they'd like.
Let's see. Someone just saying to me, yes, thanks, Kevin. Let's never forget that. Forget what? Uh, China's economy is ticking along fine. Well, their financial instruments, that's just fantasy. But their factories are running. People are going to work. The ships are coming in and out of their ports, whilst because we don't have manufacturing left in the West, people, the waitressing and wait staff jobs, have they all come back? The personal training jobs, the whatever hairdressing, service sector, right? We really bounced back, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
And
Well, if you keep people on quintuple unemployment for 10-ish months,
yeah,
it doesn't really get them enthused about going back to work. So that actually did end at the beginning of this month. So we'll just see kind of how that rolls out.
mm. Well, could be too late, right?
Oh yeah,
Like I
no,
say,
that's entirely possible. I mean, a great deal of damage is done and can't be undone without anything other than time.
mm. And what? So we're just gonna let it slide. What happens? There's a lot of Chinese in America. What they because you know what, you don't have the political will in the United States to do like in the Second World War and inter Chinese people because China's going to start kicking up a fuss in its own neighborhood. That ain't happening. Not unless there's some radical change in U.S. Policy. And look, I don't want to see that, but that's the type of world that you're looking at, where people are gonna want vengeance for what's been done to them.
And
And if you
that's
kill,
reasonable, which is
yeah,
the sad thing. But I mean,
mm,
there's a whole spiral that comes from that,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
nasty. And when you're dealing with a society that's based on face, they have to respond. Like they
yeah,
don't
and
have the option of being like, "Oh, we're the bigger man." That is not built in to
no,
Chinese sociological DNA.
no, and they, well, I don't know what they try and do with uh, I'm trying to sort of imagine how it would begin to escalate, but um,
Well, I mean, we've already heard their saber rattling over just bothering to do an investigation.
yeah, and it'll be their wolf warrior diplomacy type act, and they'll threaten all kinds of retribution should we consider investigating. But look, China is one aspect that you could spend all day talking about it. The bigger thing that we need to be looking at is there's no one that you can trust right now within the American academic, political establishment that I think would be trustworthy enough to begin proper investigations and root out the infiltration that's happened into your primary institutions. you have
Oh,
to radically change the way that they operate.
oh no, we'd
Uh,
need a whole. I mean, an organization would have to be formed towards the task to to reasonably actually attack it.
I mean, here's what I think the solution is that um, you stop using. I mean, I get it. You could say that, well, Chinese science and industry will run ahead and what have you, but it's what cost are we running for ourselves where we're allowing the degree of openness where we've allowed ideological enemies into key positions within these institutes and allowing them to um, not only and like I say, the problem is there's going to be you're going to be catching good Chinese people in this net, but um, I don't see another way around it right now. And what we start using enhanced interrogation on everyone that we think's in a critical position. That wouldn't happen, right? So you've got to develop the spine to say, okay, there's just these people, as tough as it is. We're passing a law. You're not in those positions anymore. We'll give you a couple of years' salary, and here's your plane ticket back, and you go back to China, and or I don't know, maybe Taiwan. They can get it. Give them a choice, Taiwan or mainland China. But um, the it's not just the Chinese within the institutes that are the problem. It's that just look at the people that were backing up EcoHealth and Peter Daszak. That came from the very fucking top, right?
Oh, like the
And
top, like people whose names we don't even know.
mm, yeah, and so you have to start dismantling that. And look,
I mean,
okay, do you
honestly,
want
we
to?
have to start disseminating that. I mean, more people need to be aware of the fact.
Mm,
To say,
yeah,
firstly, like you have to know what's there to even know that you need to be dealing with it. But
yeah, and
people are seeing and realizing, and I mean, here we are. We're having this conversation so that more people can.
yeah,
And
and well,
and
this conversation goes beyond Chinese people, right? So geopolitically, right now, um, because of the Belt and Road Initiative, Israel is leaning heavily towards the Chinese, right? They see, um, well, they know where the trade is coming from, and they want to be part of it, and part of that is going to be data, and they've been infiltrating companies, and through specialized military programs that they have, and people in the US need and it's something that has to come from the
grassroots.
public, the people who have to not the people who are benefiting off the backs of others all the time. It's the people who are getting screwed by these particular systems and saying we can't have, for example, your political systems are filled with dual national or dual passport holders, right? But that's insane
Yes.
that a country as powerful as the United States would allow something like that
Yeah. We
to just
dual
be normal.
citizenship in government is maddening.
So, as part of the cleanup after this, as the fallout, I would argue that that's where you've got to stop. You've got to. And I say I don't. I'm not going to pull punches, but this leaning towards Israel as a favored nation by the US, you really, really need to reappraise your relationship and what it is you feel that you're getting from that. And I know a lot comes from the sort of Bible Belt and the idea of um, ushering in the coming of the Messiah or what have you. But for all the other people, right, all the other people that are getting stuck with um, your fixation on prophecy, uh, you're the one that's bringing the demise of your country by allowing these. Well, it's infiltration through corporations. It's dual citizenship in politics. It's and again the woke ideology that penetrates into the heart of your universities. The everything, everything has been skewed so far that you're in this situation that it's taken 18 months for people to start talking about lab origin seriously. And I don't want to see
Well,
America
it's
broken in half.
well, that's I don't know if that's avoidable, unfortunately. And it won't really be broken in half. It'll just kind of have two thin slivers at the sides that might not last very long. And according to projections out of the Atlantic, they don't think that those would stand very long either. But that gets into some really interesting and, shall we say, peculiar and uncomfortable wargaming.
Yeah,
But
so but you go down that pathway, what happens is you internalize the US's attention gets internalized. It isn't
oh
able to
yeah, no,
project
that means
power.
the U.S. can do absolutely nothing about China, and China will take every single bit of that opportunity. I mean, there will be no more Taiwan. There
Mm,
will probably not be any more Korea.
mm.
Um, they might even make inroads on Japan. Although I will say I respect Abe for finally doing something about their SDF. So hopefully you
Well,
guys will be safe-ish.
but what's Japan going to do in light of, look, they're just outgunned. They don't have an army that's in any way combat hardened. Look, I'm sure Korea and China, Japan could put up a few days resistance, but it's just sheer weight of numbers, and
Oh, oh
you
yeah,
don't
no, they've got
have
the
to invade
largest
the countries.
standing army in the world at the moment, don't they?
All you have to do is blockade, right? And I guess China and
Well, and it
Korea.
doesn't hurt the fact that they just produce half of the shit in the first place, so they could just not send it.
Right? And you get to the point where so the Japanese are forced to use nuclear weapons. I mean, they have the technology, and I imagine they have some when they say they don't. But then what happens? Okay, then that causes China to really go for it, and it's an ugly picture all round. Maybe the US would be all right, just by turning inwards in those sort of circumstances. But I think it would be a bad one for the.
Oh, it would be a disaster for everybody else.
Mm, I think so. But the US has, like I say, it's become its institutions have become inoperable, I would say, and with respect to the current realities on the ground. And you're just going to keep making the same mistakes until you address.
Well,
Um,
that's presuming their mistakes.
yeah, I guess that's
I
yeah.
mean, one could say to look at things with a particular eye that literally everything is going exactly to plan.
uh, yes, and again, this is what happens when you let other ideologies get into positions where they can look, because it doesn't matter what you believe, it's what the other person believes. And if they've got a different eschatology, a different way of seeing the world, they're gonna push for their way, and this is this is what's this is the issue around Israel and its infiltration into your companies. Your Man, it's not even just your industries. It's your intelligence and your
Intelligence, government, media,
mm, mm,
defense, tech.
yeah. And you've got a real thorny issue there with pulling it out.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
there's. I'm glad that it's finally getting addressed, but it's really annoying that it has to largely come from the left and the people on the right that try and bring up the issue of dual citizenship. Doesn't really matter to the country, but there is this one that we just throw fucking billions at for some reason.
mm,
But you're obviously a Nazi, and if you're not a Nazi, then you're just a plain old anti-Semite. It's like, you don't have to be a Nazi or an anti-Semite to just say, hey, why are we throwing all of these billions at nothing? Does America have an Iron Dome?
no.
No. Did we get that technology? Not really.
Did you get a wall? No, they got one.
Yeah, they've
Um,
got a big beautiful wall. You could
yeah,
describe it as.
and this has been a Israeli Uber Alice um, century, and you could, from 9/11 and the consequences of that to what we're seeing right now. Um, the Belt and Road Initiative is the political, geopolitical um, discussion that needs to be had, and which side of the well, we know which side Israel is playing, and I'm going to press my button, but the America has to decide how are you going to be dealing with the world, and I understand a sort of some withdrawal from the world. There's no need to have uh,
Yeah, the
bases
world
everywhere aggravating.
doesn't necessarily need the U.S. to be the cops, but there is a place for someone to just say, "Hey, you're stepping way the fuck out of line." Well, yeah, I mean,
And
God forbid the UN do its fucking job.
yeah, but the UN never will and never can, and it doesn't matter whether it's the League of Nations or the UN. You're just gonna um, be subject to the internal politics and dynamics of it. You have to have a superpower that's willing to trample over things should they be needed to. But you know what? The US had, the idea of the US being dependent on Middle East oil, that problem had been solved, right? And then you've gone and given up strategic resources for ideological ones, and the this, this is it's incredibly frustrating to watch because I think Israel would be better off without the handouts, or essentially, living as dull bludgers, basically, while at the same time, engaging in this game of infiltration and this backdooring of industries, and especially high tech industries. Um, but yeah, it's a complex Gordian knot, and it's tough enough just to try and uh, deconstruct the pandemic at the current moment, right?
Oh
If
yeah,
we
there's
manage to
there's so
make it
many
out of this,
layers of what's going on right now today
mm,
that it would take many hours to just get from September 11th to today in a cogent timeline.
mm,
There is one. There most certainly is one, but it's some real Pepe Sylvia shit, man. It's red lines going from one side of the room to the other and back again.
mm, yeah. And to cap it off, you you had this debacle in Afghanistan, which is a complete uh well, the for the servicemen that did go out there and did serve and
Oh, it
did
spits in their
lose.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything that you fought for and died for, all those fields of poppies that you guarded so well, you know, all of those all those
Yeah.
Afghan warlords that you walked the young boys up to, all of that was for nothing. All of that was for
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
All those
And
warlords that you took those boxes of Viagra to so that they could keep enjoying their young men's company, whether they were
yeah.
screaming or not. That was all for nothing. All for nothing.
Yeah. And what a way to um yeah, what a way to sort of finish it. And what you still have the Patriot Act in place. You
Oh, and they're
have
trying to push
a
for an even nastier one.
yeah.
But well, oh, and that's really something. I mean, to see these people, they push and they push and they push. They're like, "Come on, blow up something, kill somebody, do something. Come on!" And no, no, no. Will you shut up and leave us alone? No. And
Mm.
boy, they are getting super desperate. I mean, did you see the incident a couple months back? I think his name was Billy Joe Bob. Perhaps I'm not 100% sure. He was from North Carolina. He drove his big dick truck to the front of the Library of Congress, threw some dollar bills out, and he was like, "I'll tell you what, old Joe, I'm gonna tell you. I'm a fixin' to tell you what now, Joe. I'm a fixin' to tell you what." That your boys, they done made me these things. They give them to me. They said they made them for me, and they said they're going to take care of problems. They did, Joe, and then we didn't hear a goddamn thing about him and how his boys made these things for old Billy Bob Joe Fred from fucking North Carolina and his goddamn brodozer that he got from fucking Central Casting and drove and like went right down to the fucking motor pool and was like, "Give me the redneckest truck you can."
Mm.
I fucking swear, Jesus, that was the glowingest thing I've about ever seen in all my fucking days.
Yeah, and it'll just keep coming. All the time that there's this incentivized military industrial complex that um, wants that finds easy profits in this the current model, and it's a shame because there's it's not like it's is are the profits that great? Can they not make
Yeah, there was still plenty
widgets
of
and
fucking money
gadgets?
to be made, in a free world. You just don't get to own people.
Right? That can't have that. Um,
No, no, it's absolutely astounding. I look at it and it's like you people could just stop and be rich and own a few people, just not all of them. And you'd be rich forever. We could go ahead and get back on to doing the science and shit instead of burning money in money fires. And, you could be rich and immortal and go to another planet and have somebody make you some humans that you own so nobody can bitch. But no, they've got to fuck everything up for the rest of us.
yeah, and where does that come from, man? It comes from this. It comes from the eschatology and the desire to see the end times in their time. They want to force the hand of God. Um,
Oh yeah,
uh,
absolutely. You can very clearly see that there is at least one, seemingly at least two groups that are working to force prophecy.
very much so. Um, look, there's this. well, we haven't really we touched on it a little bit, but the Klaus Schwab in the equation. Um,
Indeed.
this is this is a big, it's a big deal. It ties very much into what people have had to go through in the last 18 months. And what the Davos crowd are going to be allowed to keep carrying on like nothing happened, like we just didn't notice. All their language and their rhetoric, and we haven't been digging into what it is that they've been saying since since they've been piping up over the last 18 months. That suddenly it became a little bit more than a kiddie diddling group up in the Alps. Um, if people are that uh, placid in place of it, and I don't mean you've got to go out waving your guns, but stop being part of their systems. Withdraw, make it your goal to get out from their systems as much as you can. So you don't, you weren't dependent on the government dole check saving you when the economy stopped,
Well, I mean
right?
that's kind of what they've worked to get everybody into the mindset of, you could say, to
Hmm.
really get them hooked on that government dole.
Well,
And
I would say it's more hooked on
people have actually
materialism.
well, that's fair. But I'm talking kind of more in the immediate. That one's just been going since what, the 30s?
Well, you could guess it. You could say it's human nature, but we perhaps had it tamed a little better, or
Yeah,
we
it
were able
was.
to
Well,
temper expectations.
it was human nature up to a time, but then things became kind of artificially modified.
Mm,
External parties exerting control and trying to, force prophecy.
mm, yeah,
And have
and
been for a while.
here we are, man. And it doesn't have to be that, especially in the United States, right? Literally in the United States, you've got such an abundance, right, of space and resources that you don't have to get into the the debt, right, or to be having your systems operating around usury and speculation, right? It should just be thought of as inherently an unstable direction in which to head. And I don't think it's because what happens? Okay, you get a little bit of money, and then suddenly you're like, well, I can afford a whole another slew of credit cards. Hey, and then people, and you've got this ridiculous state now where people live their lives through their social media, so they it's debt for show rather than debt to live. And yeah, it's a bad place to get yourselves into, man. And there's uh, there's a different way for America. Like I said, you don't need the cities anymore, right? I can have a conversation with a smoking cat halfway around the world, in different time zones, right? And we just
Truly.
need the people to be maintaining the infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. Cities are the last, and above and beyond just, in general, cities really today, now, are the last place you want to be.
Mm,
I mean, they're, for one, a disease center. For two, I mean, you're going to be looking at what, BLM and Antifa in any major city in the
yeah,
U.S., any major city in Western Europe. I mean, yeah, just get out of the cities, go to small towns, go to your small cities, go there where you can actually make a difference.
yeah, and this look, and this brings us round to what we were talking about at the beginning, and I didn't really bring it up, but the way that the university systems have got insanely out of control, and and they're such behemoths, and we're putting children in debt for a useless bit of paper, especially in an age where you do have to something like the internet, where if you're motivated to, you can learn all kinds of stuff, right? You don't need the universities are not the gatekeepers anymore, because they have the libraries. This if I had to do, if I had to start somewhere with respect to reorganizing after all the pieces have been knocked down, is pare down the size of the universities to, what were, I don't know, take the subjects that were extant in the 40s and 50s, right? So you had history, you had art, you had the sciences and the law, etc. Those things. And if you pass the grades, okay, and you make sure that the entry level is sufficiently high, that not everyone just goes to university to get a few years um, boozing and looking, and then getting that bit of paper, and you make it free, right? And that should be the start of the um, repairing of the American system. Don't put kids into a debt that they can't discharge, that fuels a machine, and it not only fuels a machine where uh, your academic intelligentsia has run out of control, especially the virology community at the moment. But it's done on the back of imperialistic wars, where you bribe kids with, well, we'll pay your fees if you join up. Go fight in the sand traps for Israel.
Or,
I mean,
if you get one of these utterly useless degrees, the only thing you can do with one of these completely useless ones is to just continue all the way to the top and then say, well, okay, I've got a degree that does nothing. The only thing I can do with this is teach it. And then you become a
yeah,
professor in underwater basket weaving.
yeah,
And you perpetuate this
and
cycle of uselessness.
yeah.
At best, this is not even getting into the legitimately deleterious degrees and things that are actively dysgenic.
And like I say, but I would scrap it all, and like I say, the people paying off their loan, people that anything regarding student loans right now, that should just be written off, right? If they can find trillions for whatever, putting people on the dole for a couple of years whilst they lied about the origins of a pandemic, right? If they, because there just seems to be a magic fucking money tree when they want policy to go a particular direction. You take those institutes. You say, okay, you can have research departments, and you can have I don't know, just you cap the salaries of the professors such that it become. My idea is it's more a monastic type of environment, a scholarly monastic type of environment, that's not driven by publish or perish, and not driven by getting as many um, bodies into a lecture theatre where they're being fleeced thousands of dollars to listen to some dude give a presentation that now you can watch on YouTube for nothing.
Well, that's a fair point, but unfortunately, I don't think that's not really an overnight solution. Is the problem? It is a
Is it
solution,
not?
not really. I mean, that's not
Sack
something you could
sack
just do.
everyone.
Oh,
Sack everyone, right? Sack everyone. Write off the debts, and those that are in their final year, say, here's your degree, okay, and the rest you're going to have to start again after we've hired back the professors that we want in these positions, okay, and literally your metric, United States, if you're listening to me, should be anyone in the scientific domain that had any idea about how science operated and did not speak up, particularly in the biological sciences, didn't speak up in the last 18 months, okay, and make a fuss, and was too worried about their grants, okay, you out. In fact, I would just start with this. you sack everyone. You get a caretaker staff that just maintains the buildings, okay, and then the rehiring process starts again, and then you make sure that the institutes aren't filled with an imbalance of ideologues that ferments a type of wokeness that allowed the fracturing and failure of the ethics and moral
Fostered it,
framework,
even,
which
you could
bolstered
say.
it. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
the whole problem with, well, actually, the problem with that is there was this guy, and he had proposed a 1776 based education. And then an election happened. And then that was thrown in the garbage bin of history.
Mm.
So,
Well,
yeah. And then that's the one I really can't get into a lot of depth on. Although I will say that it is very unfortunate that 59 million people made a terrible, terrible error. And 80 million people did not make that error. So,
yeah.
that's a big difference in those numbers, but I can't really get into the specifics of why.
Mm.
Because we'll both get banned.
Well, I mean, if the vaccine talk and the
Yeah,
um,
we're probably both already skirting the line on this one. So,
I mean, I have to delete straight away uh from YouTube anyway. It's just got to be done nowadays if you wanna watch my streams. www.mccairndojo.com. Go there, and you can. I'm sure Dan will put the links down below, and
oh yeah.
we'll go from
Also, yeah,
there.
anything else that any show links or anything regarding what we've been talking about tonight, chat. Feel free to message me, Kevin. You know, feel free to give me anything that you'd like for me to include in the show links for anybody to be able to actually follow up on anything we've been talking about too. Because
I would,
I really like to make a point of trying to make that information available to anybody that's going to be tuning in.
yeah, it's just the website, and I guess the Discord link is on the website. So I'm easy right now. You know, I'm as a like I say, I'm a academic that just you know I'm unable to operate in the environments that they've established in the institutes right now. It would be entire. I can't. You know, I was already forced out east because of their. Uh, they didn't want to do primate research, right? It was just bloody impossible to do the types of experiments that I would want to do anywhere else. And well, so we can talk about that another time because I've got to I do the washing up before the wife gets home.
Fair enough.
That
Fair enough.
that could be in any minute. But yeah, it was fun to catch up, dude. And
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. We'll definitely have to do this again. And I have yet to get you on with either of my co-hosts, and I know that they would both be absolutely fascinated to speak with you.
well, next time we'll
Yeah,
do
absolutely, absolutely. So
uh,
I guess that's about it. So chat, it's been a pleasure. Nice to see you. Kevin, been a pleasure to talk to you as well. And I guess check my stuff out at I'm at that fake guy Dan everywhere, and it's the Fake Untitled podcast on everything. I think except iHeartMedia, and I will eventually figure out how to get on that platform too. So check it out, and thanks.